quite like that. I don't know. Oh, because they must be the leaders that are leading it. Perhaps they've got a screen with light.
I think I'll take that gentle fade as a chance to begin. Hello, good morning. We can keep admitting people, of course, but I'm very conscious of the amount of time many of us spend on Zoom at the moment, so we'll try and run to time as best we can today, so that you can maybe have a bit of social Zoom or whatever else you need to do. There's still quite a few people due, but that's fine. Good morning. So welcome to this our webinar that's part of a series that Outdoor Arts UK have been running, called Getting Back Outdoors. We did the first trench, was a lot of work on responding to COVID, as you can imagine. And this webinar came from one of our Friday meetings. We host a meeting every Friday at 4 o'clock. And when lockdown 2.0 was announced, we were discussing what the hell are we going to do, seeing some work was once again being cancelled. And somebody said, well, I suppose we could use the time to apply for grants, apply for funding. So we said, well, how can we support that? And let's do some webinars, get a bit of advice, get a bit of inspiration on all the good things about funding. So that's where that came from. And what I just want to say to anyone here who is not specifically from the outdoor arts sector, who, including the people who emailed me and said, is it all right if I come? Of course it's all right. Of course it's absolutely all right. If this is not a time to share as much information between us as possible, then I can't think of a better time for that. So everybody is welcome. Let's all just share what knowledge and information we have. So we're in Zoom today, and if you don't know it or do, you can use speaker view or use gallery view, entirely up to you. If you want a big face or you want to see lots of little faces. I personally like keeping videos on and looking at people's bedrooms, offices, or wherever else they are at, but that's entirely your choice. If you're on a laptop, it's nice and easy to find those controls. If you're on a phone or an iPad, I have no idea how that works, so I'm not going to help you there. If you keep it muted when the speakers are speaking, that'd be great, so we don't get any echo. And when we get to questions at the end, I'll call and you can unmute yourself. Obviously, stick some stuff in chat. That'd be great. So it would be also cool to know who's here. So please use the chat window to say good morning, say who you are. Now, we didn't ask for GDPR, so we're not sending around a delegate list. If you want to be contacted by everyone in this room, please feel free to put your email list in there, and you can save that at the end. If you know how to save it, press the little 3 dots on the chat. This is for laptops, in the chat window, bottom right, and you can save the chat there. But obviously do that at the end, because lots of pearls of wisdom, I'm sure, will be placed in the chat there. And we'll use the raised hands function later for questions. We also have 2 more webinars this week. We'll pop the link into the chat for these. We have one tomorrow that is another Arts Council based one on the Developing Your Creative Practice Fund, and then the third of the series will be on non-Arts Council. It's not all about the Arts Council funds. We will talk about trusts and foundations, crowdfunding, and other options. And just to be clear, this is very much England based, the first 2 for sure, because of there being Arts Council England funds. And I spoke to my colleagues in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and Ireland as well, actually. And what we'll try and do is do a roundup of kind of all the nations at some point, but they were sort of at a point where lots of funds have closed. So we are just focusing, it feels a bit England-centric, not my favorite place to be, but there we are. That's just the practicality of that. So we will do that at some point in the future. Do stay in touch with us. We send a newsletter out every week that has the link to the Friday 4 o'clock meeting, which is nice and informal. It's just a place to share news, ideas, resources, and anything else that you may want to share with the room, or just talk about a show, or talk about how you're coping with your work with COVID. That's 4 o'clock and it's free for all. So just for those who are new, I'm just going to do a quick little bit of screen share on who Outdoor Arts UK is, and actually just do a quick thing on what we're referring to as the outdoor arts sector, just so you've got a tiny bit of context. It's not it ain't the greatest PowerPoint in the world, but we can just have a quick look at that. There's some pictures, at least. We'll start with some pictures. There we are. And we're going to play, my lovely. There we go. Someone give me a thumbs up, Lara. Is that on? Yeah, lovely. Okay, so Outdoor Arts UK is an Arts Council England funded membership organisation for people working in the outdoor arts performance sector. We don't represent graffiti, so we're about performance. And this webinar today will take place until 11:30. We are very pleased to be joined by two representatives from the Arts Council, Amelia and Nick, and then we have two recipients of Arts Council England project grants, Bryony from Hikapee and Oliver from Mercurial Dance. And we also have Lou Lomas, who is on our board and is an independent producer working with Talking Birds and working with Imagineers and working with the Fabularium and a pretty good applicant for these kinds of funds. So there's your little running order. We'll keep roughly to time. I've already apologized. I did Lou out of 5 minutes. Bryony, I think it's your first day back at works after the arrival of Peggy, your newborn. So welcome back to the world of work, the new world of work, and welcome to Peggy. What a strange time to be welcoming new life, but I'm sure she's in good hands. She'll be on a trapeze within days, I hope. Great, outdoor arts, performances in streets. This is in Great Yarmouth. That's a wonderful participatory show. They're often solo shows. This is much more on the busking end of the world. That's Abby Collins dancing on traffic cones as a Russian ballerina. This is Occam's Razor in front of Norwich Cathedral performing a recent show. Processional work, we cover a lot of that. Field festivals, some of them with more of a performance and less of a music element. This is Green Man, which has a really good performance element, largely works with Horticulture Wales. Carnival, of course, big processional events, largely music, but also quite a lot of performance. Mellors, which take place all over the country, some huge Mellor events, which increasingly have more of a performance, less of a music event. Then events this is part of GDIF, international work, that's a French company in front of a London bus, which I rather like, working last year at Greenwich and Docklands Festival. This is drag storytelling for children, which found its place in an outdoor environment, which is rather fun. And then there's a sort of slightly more commercial end. These artists are represented by a commercial agency, and they will do a lot of local authority work in high street shopping centres, things like that. Very important part of our area, especially for our artists to continue to earn the cash. This is a piece by Cirque du Jour, very participatory, much of the work here. This is the Umbrella Project, which also plays very well at light festivals. Walk the Planks Fire Garden. Who doesn't love a fire garden? I do very much. And then this is another part of the world of, this is the outdoor touring Shakespeare set. It's not just Shakespeare actually, but those kind of shows that go around lots of stately homes. Again, kind of work on box office splits, a different kind of model of work. This is Odd Socks, Mods and Rockers version of Romeo and Juliet. I guess Juliet was the rocker and Romeo was the mod. I'm just guessing in the picture, I didn't see it. This is Gobbledygook, a commissioned piece that was commissioned as part of the Without Walls Touring Consortium, another important part of the sector. This is just a piece I liked very much, but much more of an installation side. The names you can see there, written in glow sand, who knew, are the names of everybody who arrived on the first Windrush boat, put interestingly against the Cutty Sark. Very interesting. And quite moving, simple piece. Colour of Time by a French company called Atonic. Wonderful. I should put the pictures of me with the holy powder on my face. And when you see my screen again, that's the picture behind me, everyone else. So I used to program the outdoor festival at the National Theatre called Watch This Space, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. If it ever were needed, it's now. Great festival, I ran that for almost a decade. And that is Studio de Cirque de Marseille. That's actually a wheel of death in the square. And I think we counted them, there were 2,800 people watching that show. So that's just a little bit about who we are. Look, I've eaten into everybody's time already. So our form, we're going to start off with Amelia from the Arts Council is going to just give us an intro to the Arts Council Project Grants Fund. Amelia, may I hand over to you?
You may, and I'm going to immediately hand over to Nick.
Okay.
Because I'm going to do the slides, so I'm going to share my screen if that's all right. Okay.
Go ahead. Ruin my agenda.
Sorry.
Hi all. I thought I would introduce who we are and broadly what we do at Arts Council England. Amelia's going to put some slides up and I'll talk to them for 10 minutes or so about the basics of what we are, who we are, what we do, and project grants, which is primarily what we're here to talk about today. We are the, okay, we're on to project grants. Yes, if we, I'm actually trying to work out. I'm not doing the slides, so I'm kind of just talking to what I can see. So we are primarily investor. We are the development agency for arts and culture in England. As Angus mentioned, that's where our focus of our activity is. But we also, of course, work with our colleagues in Arts Council Wales and Creative Scotland at times. We are divided into areas. So I'm based in the southwest. I live near Exeter. Our office is in Bristol, and Amelia is the opposite end of the country in the northeast, based in the Newcastle office. We both work in the Combined Arts team, and Combined Arts is where everything that isn't an art form that you can name ends up. And so that includes all outdoor arts activity, festivals, carnival, work in public spaces, work that combines different art forms and art sectors, art centres, places that have a kind of multi-art form and multidisciplinary function. And we primarily work to a broad strategy, and we launched our latest version of this, which is our 10-year strategy called Let's Create last year. Let's Create focuses on 3 core principles, which is we want to support people being creative, we want to support communities that are cultural and vibrant, and we want to recognise and support a creative and cultural country. And behind that, there's 4 investment principles, which are basically, we want to support ambition and high quality work. We want to support work that is inclusive and relevant to people in England. We want to make sure that the arts sector and all the organisations that we support are dynamic and forward-looking, and we want to recognise that everything we do needs to be filtered through the lens of environmental responsibility. So, project grants. Project grants are, as the title suggests, they're time-limited grants for people who want to make arts experiences that will reach the public. The money for project grants comes from the National Lottery. So it's really important, and I think this is maybe one of the fundamental things to recognise, is that there needs to be a benefit for the public, for people that buy lottery tickets, for the broader population, and we aim to ensure as wide as possible spread of Arts Council funding through different kinds of project activity. Project grants you can apply for between £1,000 and £100,000, and if you do apply, then we ask some basic questions that sit in our application form process. There are some new things that we need that we've introduced recently. We also support work in libraries. We support museums and specialist subjects. And one of the most fundamental things at the moment is that whilst we in the past have always asked for 10% at least of match funding, because of the current COVID crisis, we've taken away that requirement for any additional match funding to go in with applications. So what can you apply for? Well, any of the art forms that we recognise, and combined arts, so a dance activity, literature, music, theatre, visual arts, museums, or anything that combines those or sits within the outdoor arts frame. What kinds of things can you apply for? Well, at the moment, we're very keen on, you can apply for research to develop a new project. You can apply to make a new piece of work. You can also apply to do specific events, to deliver workshops that reach people and engage participants, and you can apply to do work that you would take on tour. What you can't apply for, there's a list of things here, and as I said, there's that fundamental thing to think about in terms of our relationship with the lottery, is that the work has to reach an audience. It has to reach people in England. We also can't fund things retrospectively. So it must be a project that is in the future, and I'll talk about the time frame in a minute. we can't support anything that's part of a school or university core provision, although we do quite often work with schools and universities for extracurricular activity and participatory opportunities for students and children and young people. Project grants is for time-limited arts projects. It's not for the core running costs of an arts business or an organisation. And cinema and fashion are supported elsewhere, so by the BFI and our other partner and funding organisations. When you apply, we look for and make decisions on 4 particular criteria. And the questions that you'll be required to answer in the application process sit within this framework. So we're looking for work that's of high quality, and how you might evidence that is by telling us what you've done in the past, telling us about the idea that you've got, telling us who you'll be working with, telling us who the artists are that will be working on the project, and telling us about anybody that might be supporting and partnering with you that gives us an assurance and confidence about the quality of what you're doing. We also ask about public engagement, and in this it can range from the core participants on a project, say on a carnival organisation or a carnival project, which might have lots of participants, or it might be about a group that you're developing a piece of work with. And then there's a wider audience when your work meets a public, and we in a festival setting or whatever other public space setting that you intend to eventually take it into. We'll ask about the budget. We'll ask about where your income streams are, what your expenditure is on, and we require budgets to be to match income and expenditure, because one of the things we can't fund is activity that's driven to create and create a profit. So it is a time limited funded project that has an income and expenditure budget that balances. We'll also ask about the management of the project and how you're going to go about doing it, what experience you've had in the past, and how you will evidence that your idea is going to be deliverable. If you need support in making the application, we provide a lot of guidance in alternative formats. We can support the cost of an access support worker in meetings with us or to help you complete the form. And we can translate applications made in BSL into written in English. If you need that kind of help, then going to our website, which the web address is there, and you can also request it from our inquiries email via our inquiries email. And note in the title that you want access with your access support for your application. We do easy read guidance, we do audio guidance, and we do BSL guidance, which is available if you request it. Our project guidance pages of our website have a lot of information. They can be a bit impenetrable, and if you need a little bit further help or a bit of guidance around it, then email our customer services team at inquiries@artscouncil.org.uk, and you can request a conversation with a relationship manager, which would be somebody like myself or Amelia that sits within the combined arts team, to have a conversation with you about how you may be able to articulate your case and what kinds of things we're looking for at the moment. One of the things I wanted to add is just to talk a little bit about what we specifically want to fund at the moment. We closed project grants in April, reopened them in September with a slightly revised set of priorities. And for us at the moment, the things that we're really looking to fund are work by and that support individual creative practitioners, freelancers, including time for them to think and plan. We'll prioritise research and development projects that can happen now. We want to support organisations to help them develop and become more sustainable. And particularly at the moment, in terms of kind of short-term stuff, we want to support live activity that can be delivered safely under the kind of conditions that we're sitting in because of the pandemic. We also want to support our equality objectives, which are, there are a few of those, and particularly they're about improving access for disabled, neurodivergent, deaf and disabled workers, audiences and participants. We want to support meaningful engagement with Black minority ethnic participants, audiences and arts workers. We want to support work that challenges racism and embeds anti-racist sentiments. And we want to create specific opportunities for more disadvantaged groups of children, young people and older people. So those are a few of the specific things that we've said that we want to support in the short term because of the current situation. I'm really happy if you want to ask questions about us, about any of this, and we'll also steer you to where there is more written information sitting on the website about what our current thinking and current priorities are.
Thanks, Nick. That's really helpful. I'm going to steer people towards, we've arranged with some different Arts Council colleagues, Nikki and Karen, some one-to-ones that take place on Friday. There are still some places left there when I last looked just before we logged on here, but we have a standby team of Arts Council colleagues so we can schedule some more, so that those are super accessible for people in this webinar. So that's brilliant. Thank you, Nick. Really helpful, that overview. And Amelia, you're going to come in at the end once we've had everyone else. Is that cool? And do a respond. Why not? Lovely. But let's look at projects. So Bryony, first day back at work. You're on. Tell us about Hikapee and Project Grants and You. Thank you.
Hiya. So I'm Bryony. I'm co-artistic director of Hikapee. We are a circus theatre company. We create work for both the outdoors and indoors. A lot of it's been based for children and families, but we are currently working on an adult show as well, so that's exciting. So we sent in a successful application earlier this year. I think it was just after it reopened. And this is called The Hidden World or The Hidden People. It's a sister project of an ongoing project that has been happening. So we are in the midst of doing rehearsals for a large-scale theatre show, but that has had to be postponed for a year because of COVID. Because there would be 17 people in a room and that's just not feasible for us at the moment. So this sister project is a VR project, a virtual reality. So Hikapee, my company, are collaborating with an Icelandic technical creative company called Huldufolk. And this project is all about the hidden people who are like an elf-like person found in Icelandic folklore. And it's all kind of looking at how humans are affecting the environment, the world that we actually live in, and how stories and things are really important to kind of highlight what's changing and what's happening. So specifically for this project that we applied for, it's 3 weeks of rehearsals. 1 week is kind of talking to the collaborators that we're working with in Iceland, and kind of thinking about the narrative, because we had the narrative set for the theatre show, but for this VR project we want it to be a little bit different, still looking at the same characters but a slightly different story. And then 2 weeks of physical rehearsals in a room. Now we've kind of created this so that we know we can do it no matter what the guidelines are for COVID, which was an important part of our creation process for the application. So we're looking at motion capture. So each performer will have their own motion capture suit, and they don't need to be near each other. They're going to have their own piece of circus equipment to work on. And our partners in Iceland hopefully will be able to come over and be in the rehearsal room with us, but they don't need to be, which is really important. So we applied for £15,000 for this application. We've also got some money from an Icelandic fund. So although we know we didn't need match funding for this application at the moment because of what Nick was saying about them changing the criteria, we knew for this project to be successful, we needed about £30,000 equivalent. And we've never asked as a company for more than £15,000 from the Arts Council yet. We know our next one will be, but for now, we felt comfortable asking for 15, and our partners in Iceland felt comfortable asking a fund that they knew as well. And so together that kind of creates the funds that we need. And hopefully if you've got more than one fund, it kind of shows the other fund that someone else believes in the project. It's always a positive. So how we actually wrote the application. The other half of Hikapee is my husband, Ed, and we always write them together. So I'll write a question and then he'll review it and we'll talk about it. But we also got everybody else, all the other partners in this project to read through it because they've all got their own specialisms. So Owen is our technologist. So anytime we were talking about the specific technology we're using within the project, I would get him to read it through just in case I was using the wrong terminology, that kind of thing. But we didn't work with an external producer. For us as a company, we have always done our own producing ourselves. That's not to say that's always going to be the case. For our very first projects, about 5 years ago, we did help a little bit from a producer. We didn't bring them on board, but Flora Herberich, we had some meetings with her and kind of more informal chats, and we spoke through some of the questions, and she kind of really highlighted the importance of bringing partners on board before you write an application. And we also worked with Lorna Palmer, who is Combined Arts Relationship for Arts Council South East. She's given us some advice, kind of ongoing advice throughout the years, which has been really helpful, and to build a relationship with her as well has been great. So yeah, we've had a really good success rate from project grants. I actually looked at it yesterday, and I think we've had 9 successful applications, which is amazing. Really, really happy about that. We had one which wasn't successful as well, which is always a learning experience. For us, it was like a technical thing to do with budgeting. So you just have to be careful with what you say is an asset. Most things that you put into your budget come under artistic spending. So just be careful about that. So why did we go for project grants and not something else? Well, this is focusing on a particular project. It's not developing me as an artist. It's engaging quite a few different artists in this project. It was something we did before, and it's also not developing our organisation. It's not developing Hikapee. It's developing what kind of work we create and who's going to be able to access it. And so these are all kind of key things that we thought fit with the project grants from Arts Council. Another reason that we've created this project is because we didn't want to lose momentum for our larger theatre show. So we've had 2 R&D sessions already in the last 2 years for this project, and rehearsals were supposed to take place in January, but we wanted to create something that keeps momentum going, keeps interest for the project, and also vitally gives some of the artists that were going to be involved in that some work, which is really important at the moment. So it's something that can be created with social distancing, and it's also something that can be seen in these kind of strange times, because it's a VR project. People with VR sets at home can access it, and then the hope is that once a few of the restrictions are lifted, we'll be able to present this piece to the public using VR sets that we've got in things like outdoor festivals, film festivals. So turnaround, usually it's a 6-week turnaround for under £15,000 applications. It's also a big difference. But if you go over £15,000, it's a 12-week turnaround. So that's a big consideration for you. But we actually heard back for this one in 3 weeks, which was really great, really helpful. So we haven't actually done the project yet. It's technically starting in January, and then physical rehearsals are in March. So we're just kind of waiting for that time. We wanted to build in some time before the start, just in case some of the funding we applied for didn't come through.
Bryony, can I move on? That's so brilliant. 9 out of 10 sounds like a fantastic hit rate. I think that's great.
Nice. Yeah.
And also with a half the turnaround time. So Amelia and Nick, things are you're under scrutiny there. That's great. And you mentioned you don't work with independent producers. Let's segue through. So Lomas, OA UK board member, independent producer. I wonder if you could share some of your experience with us. Thank you, Bryony, so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Angus, thanks Bryony for that. That's brilliant. I've just got a quick some slides, and I'll make sure that I'm super speedy through it. So those of you who don't know me, yes, I'm a freelancer outdoor arts producer, only ever working outdoors. I've got 10 years of experience working with a host of companies regionally and nationally. I'm based in Coventry, so you might see lots of West Midlands based companies here on this list. It was just to kind of give an indication of the breadth of projects, ranging from small scale to medium scale, festivals and events. I've worked on the Coventry City of Culture bid in the lead up to the programme. I've worked on Ambition for Excellence projects, so just to give an indication of the scale of work. Talking of Ambition for Excellence projects, this was an award that we got for Imagineer Productions called Bridge. It was a large-scale circus outdoor arts show at night time with a kind of residency model of looking at community engagement and co-creating content in neighbourhoods. So about building bridges, bridging across divides with communities. And we did this in Coventry and Grantham, and also we'll be doing that next year. I also am the producer for the Fabularium, so you might have seen them with their animal headpieces, touring small-scale family theatre shows, and the lovely talking birds there. That isn't a jacket potato stand, it is a whale in which you can go inside and have a 3-minute theatre show, and Angus has programmed that before. And then also just to talk about...
10 years ago.
That was my first job, Angus, there you go. And then just for context, Shopfront Festival and the Festival of Imagineers. So in the lead up to the bid for City of Culture, when we got the announcement, we did a Shopfront Festival, animated the high streets with over kind of 50 performances in and outdoors of shops on the high street. And then this is Luke Jones' beautiful piece that I programmed and put in Coventry swimming baths before it kind of closed, so you could have a moonlight swim. And then also a dance project, so Ascension Dance, young company from Coventry, and then an artist called Steph Rydens, the Tapping In co-created project, teaching people learning to tap dance for a large-scale project that will be happening in 2022. So my role then as a producer, so Angus just asked me to touch on this briefly. I suppose it's just worth saying that I've supported and been involved in over 100 funding applications, whether that's been research and development bids, project grants, local authority, commissions for festivals and call-outs, all of those things. And I just wanted to highlight, in case some of you didn't know, that working with a producer can work in a variety of different ways. So sometimes I have found myself supporting the overall vision of the project, creative planning and devising, working with communities because I love people, and getting out there and really kind of being in the realm with everyone and working together on large scale work. Managing partnerships, key stakeholder relationships, tour booking, so making sure that you've got a tour for festivals or events that you're doing, arts administration, which is where I started my career all those years ago, and project management, strategic thinking, audience engagement, budget management, working with production and events teams, fundraisings, and really good at making cakes for company meetings. So
I'm just saying you're on the board, so I'd like to see those when we have a live board meeting again, please.
Okay, deal. And then just to kind of reiterate really of what kind of Nick was saying earlier, it was just really making sure that you familiarise yourself with the Let's Create strategy. I was really excited when this came out because you know, I've been an advocate for co-creative work for a long time and really believe in that. And I think it's just worth you familiarising yourself with that document. It's a really, you know, it's a really brilliant document, as Nick sort of highlighted earlier, and just familiarising yourself with some of those kind of investment principles, what Arts Council are looking for, and also just making sure that you're looking at the kind of long-term outcomes of that as well. And for me, because I'm a producer, I really love a spreadsheet. It really helped me in terms of putting stuff into a table, thinking about how does the project align, how does the vision for what you want to achieve as an artist, or I want to achieve, how does that align with some of those as well? Where are the crossover points? Where are the things, in areas in which you're working? So it's just being really mindful of that and taking all that on board. I've done a kind of quick whistle stop through this. So the quality section on an on an application, I would say to you, before you start writing anything, okay, make sure you know what the key elements of that project are. Think about your wording, think about, I call them hot words, think about the things that you want to include and tell the story. It's like any good novel, okay? It has to have that kind of narrative that throws through it, okay? Because the people reading your application might not necessarily know you or know your project. So being really clear, giving as much detail as you can, keeping them hooked, okay, is really key for any funder. Making sure that you've got really clear aims and objectives. So think about it, you know, what it is that you want to achieve, how you're going to do it, and really kind of big up your practice. You know, think about the range and breadth of experiences that you might have. I was thinking about this particularly when I was at my early career or emerging artist, and thinking about how do you draw from all of those things that you've done, whether that's internships, placements, all of those things as well. You know, your shows, exhibitions, your gigs. You know, really highlight those in that application. And also it's really worth kind of engaging, if you can, with your regional officer. So we have some brilliant ones in the West Midlands, I have to say, who have been really supportive. So, you know, remember, they are the human face behind all of that. You know, they're really up for a chat. They also like cake. So, you know, make sure that you kind of meet and engage with them. And I've also put on here, being mindful of the word count, dun, dun, dun. So use a template form, okay? So I put the kind of link there to the Uncultured resources. Basically, you know, Grantium can be a pain sometimes. So make sure that you've got the right character count, the spaces, all of those things, and just keep track of that throughout your application. Audience engagement then. So just in remembering that we all know this, that audiences are integral to your work, okay? It's about you finding the good grounding for your project, but also building partnerships. You know, think about who you're trying to attract, okay? So who is it that you want to kind of draw into your project? You know, is it teenagers, young people, non-arts attenders? How are you going to do it, okay? So really identifying from the start who your audience is, why you're targeting them. Also thinking about pricing as well. So those of you who might think about ticketing events, indoor or outdoor, thinking about, you know, where you're setting that, what the benchmark is for some of those things. How you're going to reach people, okay? It's really not good enough to go, I'm just going to stick a kind of social media post on. What else is it, okay? What's the depth, the detail, okay? Where are you telling your story, okay? The plan for attracting more people, and the story that you need your audiences to tell. So that's a little bit of marketing there, but again, it's thinking about what's the narrative and drive throughout that, okay? And making sure that you're communicating effectively. And then I spoke a bit about kind of partnerships. So evidencing your support in letters of support, okay, from festivals, partners, community groups, venues, whatever that might be, the partnership is where you need to identify your strengths, okay? So think about that team around you. What do you need to make your project happen, okay? And you're just really articulating that and highlighting that to any of your funders. When you think about touring, it's really important to think about where you're going, what the useful links and connections are, know the area, know where you're going, what the significance of that is, what the kind of demographics are of those areas, where you're working, and really demonstrate that link and partnership that's embedded throughout. So talk about the long-term vision, the long-term sustainability of what you're hoping to achieve, okay? And just remember that partnership is not always about cash. Okay, partnership can work in a kind of multitude of ways. So it's not always about people putting money into the work. It's also about developing long-term connections and links with people or organisations. Timeline. Okay, so planning's key. As I said, I love a kind of Excel sheet or a table. Work backwards has always helped me through my timeline of going, right, what's the end point? Making sure that you've got fixed key milestone moments within that project delivery. Okay, so thinking about embedded reflection time through evaluation. So for me, throughout, I'm constantly assessing back to my aims and objectives, looking back at how I'm forecasting that project. And remember to give yourself the kind of time and breathing space, particularly after this year. Okay, so be really realistic in your timeline. Is it achievable? Can you deliver your set design by then? Can you deliver that meeting by that point? So have a kind of real clear vision of how that's going to work and evolve. And to be honest, you know, I think in my experience, Arts Council have been really flexible this year in terms of COVID and being reactive to how things have had to shift. So just keeping that dialogue with them. Budgets, work out the detail, and I put don't be frightened, it's money in and money out. Okay, so all of that horrible algebra that you have to do when you're at school, it's not any of that. Okay, it's money in and money out. Okay, as Nick highlighted earlier, 10% obviously has kind of been waived for now. Okay, you don't need to have that, but it's worth keeping in mind. Okay, so evidencing your earned income, your support in kind, where that money can come from. Is it ticket sales? Is it local authority, charities and trusts? I've highlighted here about making sure that you're including your access, COVID compliance, contingency, insurance, and some links there that will help you think about how you cost your project. Okay, in block capitals, I put pay people fairly. We're in really difficult times. We should always be doing this. Please pay people fairly. Okay, in Arts Council, I'm so delighted, have that as a question on their form. So please make sure that you're doing that. And then your support in kind, okay? So making sure, you know, it can be a non-cash contribution, but has a value. So it could be a bit of mentoring, room hire, all of that will contribute to your 10%. I'm on the last slide, Angus. So evaluation then. Remember, good, strong evaluation helps you to reflect your work, okay? Refer to those project aims throughout. Monitor the elements of your project that have been successful and the ones that haven't, okay? Make sure you're documenting everything. Having some feedback time with critical friends, stakeholders, peers, community groups is really important. I can't tell you enough how much it's important that you share your learning back with the sector. So I feel like we're all in it together, so we should be helping each other. Anything that you can learn from is really important. Give yourself plenty of time for Grantium, because it can be a pain. Okay, don't just think, oh, I'm going to do that on my lunch break. It doesn't upload in that time. So make sure you're giving yourself at least a day or a day and a half. And then I've put good luck, remember a cup of tea, maybe something stronger if you need it, and a cake for after you click send. Whew. I hope that was my whistle stop tour, Angus.
Enough with the cake, enough with the cake. So thank you, Lou, really helpful. Big quick response to Let's Create. I was in a sort of scarily high-powered Arts Council meeting, and we were talking about Let's Create, and I said essentially it's a manifesto for outdoor arts, and there was a lot of nodding on Zoom. So I take that as a good thing. Even if you look at the pictures in Let's Create, they're all outdoor arts. So we're there. In terms of audiences, you mentioned audiences and who we're doing it for. We have the audience agency outdoor arts report that we worked with the audience agency on. That is really, really key document for everybody writing an application, because that just gives you who those people are and why we need to read them. It gives you the demographics, so you don't have to do it. It shows you people tend in social groups. It shows you the age ranges, all of that. Use those key figures. That's brilliant. Lou, we've had a request for a slide share. Is that okay by you? Can we do that with it? Yep. Your checklist
fine.
will be very useful. So let's move on. Oliver, let's hear about your experience with Arts Council Project Grants of late. Thank you very much, Oliver. Also Coventry.
Yes. So yeah, I'm Oliver Scott. I'm the artistic director of Mercurial Dance, and we're based in Coventry. And we have three strands of the work that we do. We create site-specific performances. We've got an education program that is self-funded and brings income into the company. And then we have our outdoor arts touring work, which for many years has actually been just small shows, self-structured tours around the Midlands. And we're just starting to step into national touring with a new project that we're putting together, which was going to be this year, and it's now next year. This year, as I think for all of us, has been a bit odd, but we've actually submitted 6 Arts Council applications over the course of this year. Our first one went in January, and 3 weeks before we found out about it, got paused by the Arts Council, and it was a really big project we've been working up to called Route 10. I'm going to talk a bit more about that. Then we put in for an emergency grant and a cultural recovery grant, because as an individual, I'm not eligible for any of the furlough schemes, and neither is anything in the business. And that's been a real godsend and a transformative moment really for the company this year, is having the support of the Arts Council, which we're really grateful to. Because what it's enabled us to actually reflect, step back a little bit, and use the time available to really refocus where we're going a little bit with the company and start on some new pieces of work. And that's the kind of one of the pieces that the most recent application that I'm actually going to talk about a little bit. So our refocusing, we've done some policy work with this time over the summer, but we've also focused on how we've always had a digital strand that's woven in and out of our work, whether that's been outdoor arts, kind of projection mapping pieces that we've done at night, or whether it's been kind of creating sensory environments for dancers to work within. And we wanted to kind of really extend that and bring that back into our practice a little bit more. But what our cultural recovery grants enabled us to do is start to think about that from a different perspective. And the perspective really came in from what the territory was we'd like to work in almost before the artistic idea. So we wanted to bring digital game techniques, so computer game mechanics, the ideas and the concepts behind that into dance. And we wanted to use that in the territory of outdoor arts. And so we put an R&D into the Arts Council application, this one was under 15K. To do that and start to research it. So the idea is we're going to create an new outdoor adventure game that's facilitated through a mobile phone. And so some of this is also responding to where we're at the moment in terms of kind of our audiences and what we think is going to happen and a flexible format. We'd already raised some money from Arts Connect and also from Surf the Wave. So we pitched, although again, the Arts Council didn't need match funding, we always try and fund it because, as Lou was saying, it evidences the partnerships that we're doing, and it sort of brings a stronger application into what we're doing with it. So how we made the applications, we put this together really with the with my producer. I say we when I talk about it because I have two producers who work part-time. One's on maternity leave at the moment. And often it'll start with some pitches that I've written up and I've taken out, and we've talked to people and our partners, a one-pager, maybe an image I've found. And from that, that'll form the artistic idea. And then we'll hone that into the section of the Arts Council application that we want to do. So we already had the pitches and the proposals and the narrative from previous funding applications that we were successful with, that we reworked. And then we'll exchange that and we'll work on it as a team. So I'll write it and then I'll send it to Mark and he'll do something. Sometimes Mark will do all the kind of timeline stuff for me because he does it really well, having talked about what the timeline of the company is. And then we submit, and then we pull that together for the Arts Council application. We put that all in just as it reopened, and we weren't successful. And this is something that happened. So we got feedback. Luckily, it was a 3-week turnaround, and that was really great. So we resubmitted. We took the feedback on board, which was 2 areas really. And you get these. If you've not had one before, you get these kind of messages that from the Arts Council with their letters that talks about. How you think. I'm just going to find the text. So we decided that your application was less strong in relation to quality and/or public engagement from the other applications received, and then a comment on how it could be strengthened. So we took that feedback and we rewrote the application and then resubmitted it, and then we were successful. So one of the things we always think about as we're working with that is we're thinking about where our audience is really and who it is. So something we know about the outdoor arts that Angus has talked about as well is that we're really great in engaging people, and in essence we can engage anywhere just by going to where they're working, and this is something we've done for a while. So when we were working with that, we thought about who we're going to work at this stage, but also how we're going to work with our audience at the next stage. So we're thinking about, it's an outdoor adventure game. It's going to be groups in family bubbles. They can take it around, and possibly we should be able to scale to 200 or 300 people audiences, because they will be separate in their own bubble and traveling around a city on their own within that. And then just sort of the facilitation around what we do as a company to make that happen and make that experience kind of capture it. But along the same time of that, we want to kind of have an effect where people, that's visible. And so then there's going to be a sort of secondary audience who'll get interested in it. And this audience, if you don't know about, is often called footfall. It's the people who are walking up and down the city centre streets all the time. And you can find these numbers out, and they're really large. So in Broadgate in Coventry, you can get 60 to 70,000 people will walk past every hour. And you can do some maths from a show. So you might say 4,000 people might walk past a 20-minute show. And of that, maybe 150 to 300 people may watch it. So there's an idea of taking the maths of what we might think about a light touch engagement, but also the in-depth experience of the people who will be experiencing the piece of work. And we try and talk about that in our audiences, in our audience section, about these different ends of the scales, because, okay, light touch, we might have seen it, it's still a level of exposure or an interest. And then people start to take a journey as an audience through those different levels of kind of risk, if you like, to stop, if they're really unfamiliar with outdoor theatre, into things that they'll stop, watch, engage with you, talk to you after the show, engage with the company. And we try and chart some of that as we go through and build this narrative about how we're working and creating work with people. And it helps me then to justify value for money to the Arts Council. So I can do some numbers on that, or Mark does some numbers. So we say number of people by how much Arts Council spending, and then you can work out what it is and how that compares to a theatre ticket or something like that. Because although we're making work that's often free for audiences, it still has real value. So there's a point there that we like to think about is demonstrating value in different ways: financial, the level of experience, participation, and putting it in a number way. Even though it's a bit reductive about the art, it really helps communicate and shows that you're thinking things through from different perspectives. One of the challenges I find with Arts Council, and this little project is an example of it, is actually how long they take to make decisions. And this year has been really great because actually timescales have often been shortened and compressed to respond to it, but you really need to factor this in. So under 15K, it's 6 weeks. And if you get a setback, then it's another 6 weeks. So already you've got a 12-week waiting point if you're thinking about that before you can do any work. Over 15K, they have this 12-week turnaround. And so if you get knocked back, it's another 12 weeks to think about. And that could potentially mean you lose your outdoor arts touring season if you don't get that timing right and plan for it. So all the time I'm thinking about strategically, is this better in 3 hops with 15K? Or have I got the confidence now and the backing and the partnership to go for 45K and risk there being a longer wait in terms of how I'm doing the work and how I'm taking the steps towards it? And this is something Mark and I, with our producer, we talk about quite a bit about the strategic planning alongside the arts work that we're doing when we do that. So simply our title, digital gamification in arts, it is part of a strategic plan that we're thinking about how we use digital technology and digital platforms into how we reach audiences, so that we can perhaps bring a mechanic that maybe at the next stage can bring some level of income. So the free outdoor arts sector can either be then commissioned by a festival, or potentially we can put it on ourselves in a town. And there's an element of you can watch for free, but if you really want to delve into the experience and the story, then you can buy tickets that we can put through digital platforms to make that happen, and that gets facilitated through an app. So it's sort of something we're experimenting about how we can digitally put this in, how we can experiment with augmented reality to experience it, along with placing live actors around a show. And this is sort of what our research and development territory is all about at this time on this particular piece of work. I think really this, I suppose, sort of summarising in kind of a few top tips a little bit, is that we've often taken a bit of time and brought our partnerships together before we submit to ACE. So sometimes Arts Council are really good at stepping in first and trusting that the other thing will come. But at the moment, we find that we try and get a lot of little small buy-ins and nods and evidences, whether it's, yes, come and use our studio for a little bit of time, whether it's we'll book the show and some evidence of that when you've fully made it. And we start to build that patchwork together. So we'll build a portfolio of who's behind us before we go to the Arts Council, including match funding. We try and work on our, if we need to rework on quality, we think about who our partnership is. So we got a knockback on quality. So we then reworked and connected with something that could offer a bit of training or a bit of advice in our R&D. So there's somebody there who can speak, if you like, within our partnerships to the different needs of an Arts Council application and how they will help move us forward as a company from where we are now to the next stage at the end of that proposal. So the other tips are, there's a journey that we're thinking about as we go through.
Oliver, I need to bring Amelia back in, if I may. Oliver, can I bring Amelia back in? Just because we're running out of time. That's so helpful. What all
final one is just like plan for the setback so that it's not a setback, so that you're ready to go and you just take it in your stride and you keep working forwards with it.
Learning from failure. It's the best thing. It's an absolute thing to do. I totally agree. Amelia, so much covered there. There are specific questions. Would you like to do a quick response to some of that?
Yeah, I've been making some notes, and Nick, feel free to jump in. So firstly, I just wanted to chat a little bit about the differences between under 15s and over 15s. So obviously we've spoken about the times. There's a larger decision time for 12 weeks for over 15,000, but also the way they're assessed are slightly different. So when you have an under 15,000, what happens is they're all gathered together in one decision meeting with 2 relationship managers, such as me and Nick, but it could be any art form. So it could be music relationship managers, visual arts. So like Bryony said, don't assume that there's a specialist looking at your under 15 application. It could be somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't know the art form, who isn't aware of the touring networks and partnerships. So make it really clear and specific in your application. And what happens is we have a budget to look at, and there are a number of rejection reasons. And ideally, it's a really strong project that we don't talk about. We both really strongly agree that it's going to be funded and it goes straight through. If it's an application that we both feel it's not hitting our aims, it's not hitting our criteria, there's some things that we're unclear about, and we will reject that one. And like Oliver said, give a rejection reason and some feedback. And then we'll have a discussion about the ones that are kind of in the middle. And I know Angus mentioned about different geographic areas, different art form priorities. So we have different stresses and strains on the budget. So we'll have a lot of theatre applications at the moment. And, you know, historically, we always get a lot of theatre applications. So we want to kind of make sure that all the art forms are represented, all the geographic areas are represented, try and be as balanced as we can. And as Nick mentioned, looking at our new priorities around supporting freelancers. So we want to try and make sure that, you know, as much as sort of like 50-50 organizations and individuals and freelancers are supported to kind of make it as fair and as possible. We also want to try and hit the equality objectives that Nick also mentioned. So we're looking at all of these different things to try and balance out where the money can be spent as fairly as possible, and obviously give as much constructive feedback as we can so that people can come back in with a stronger application. The other thing I was going to talk about was children's projects were mentioned. So if you're working with children, we have children's quality principles that are on our website. And we also support something called Arts Award, which is a sort of a children's activities. It's sort of a formal program of activities that children can complete, of activities and toolkits that get them further engaged in projects. And so if you wanted to incorporate something like that and work with a sort of an Arts Awards Centre to develop something, you know, that could be seen as a stronger project, adding another element of depth of engagement for those children, young people, and also to include, you know, if you're working with young people, obviously any kind of duty of care and safeguarding, things like that when you're working with children and young people is always good to see. Public engagement, I made note there of the audience agency, then you covered it, Angus, with your outdoor arts reports, but also things like we're working in a new dimension of digital and how can we best use digital. We have some tech champions at the Arts Council, and there's a section on our website which I'll find the link to and put it in the chat. And they're free to kind of contact, they're happy to answer questions and things like that, and they're very useful. So please do utilise their knowledge and expertise if you're thinking about doing anything involving digital for the first time. R&D projects is the next thing. I'm racing through this, Angus, so we'll try and get finished on time.
You're doing great.
R&D projects are great. And obviously there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas that they want to work on right now. And we talk about how you're going to engage people. R&D projects, what we want to see is, have you thought about the journey? Who are you going to sort of work with? Who's going to mentor you? Are you going to do a course? Are you going to shadow somebody? Are you going to spend desk time researching? What's your R&D plan? And if we can have confidence in your plan that you're going to explore all these ideas, and you have your audience, your engagement, your public engagement section can be a bit more hypothetical. But as long as you have thought about where this idea will go, that's one of the key things people struggle with in R&D applications. But we understand you don't have a fully formed product. You know, this is the whole point. But have you thought about where you will take it? That's kind of how you approach the R&D public engagement section. And there is a really interesting information sheet on the website, which again I'll pop on the chat about that. Next one, assets. Somebody mentioned assets. Again, there's an information sheet about assets and what you can use project grants for. Some people, you know, might want to purchase a big top. They might want to purchase a vehicle, but we have really clear guidance on how you can go about doing that, which are sort of formed by the National Lottery rules around assets and things like computers, photography equipment, things like that. If it's going to benefit your ongoing artistic development and practice, that is absolutely fine. Other things like vehicles, there are specific guidance, so I would check the information sheet out about those. It just involves telling us how you're going to account for depreciation and things like that. Somebody else talked about multiple projects. You can have multiple funded projects at the same time, but what you can't do is have two projects awaiting a decision at the same time. So if you've got a number of under 15 projects in mind, you have to wait until the first project has a decision, hopefully a successful one, before you submit the next project. But you can run concurrent projects that are funded by Arts Council. The next one I talked about was freelancers, which, yes, fair pay, amazing, brilliant. We do want to see that. There's a number of resources on how you might go about looking at fair pay, how the guidelines about how you're paying actors and outdoor performers and musicians, etc. Also, you can just negotiate that fee with that person. And if it's a confirmed artist, and that is an absolutely fine answer as long as you've had that conversation and you know, it's obvious that it is a reasonable amount. Also contingency, some funders don't fund contingency, but we are living in very uncertain times. You know, it's prudent to put an element of contingency in there. And also timing, you have up to 3 years to spend your lottery funding. So we've been very, very flexible. If things are rolling over by a year, you know, you have up to 3 years to actually complete the project and submit up the paperwork. Also, finally, 2 things, rejection reasons. If you are coming in and you've been rejected before, it's always good to just address the fact that how you've addressed that feedback in your next application, because it's likely it's not going to be the same to people reading your second application that saw your first one, but they will know that it's a resubmission. So if you have addressed it in specific ways, just make that clear if you've got the word count. And finally, nobody's mentioned supporting documents. You are allowed to upload a PDF. And I think it's a couple of PDFs once you get over 15,000. So if you want to do an activity plan, a more detailed budget, examples of previous work, contracts, it can be up to 5 pages. So you can sort of put multiple things in and attach them all together. And we do look at those. And finally, for under 15, it's useful to know that there are various stages in the assessing. So you go through a central portal where our team sort of sift through any ineligible applications, things like their budgets don't balance or the activities sort of already started and we can't fund things that have already started. So things like that won't get through to a sort of grant management stage, and they will look at the budget and the management and the overall project. And only once it gets past that central stage does it get to a decision panel. And at under 15, the relationship managers are only looking at artistic quality and public engagement. So if there's anything that you want a relationship manager to see that might be in the management section or in the finance section, try and get it in the public engagement and the artistic quality section as well, because those are the only 2 sections that we see at the decision meetings.
Amazing, thank you so much. All segue together beautifully. Can I just thank all of you for being so frank and open on that? That was really, really key to it, to talk about the process. And from I'm not going to say both sides, from the people working together, it's really, really good to hear that different thing. Quick question, how do people find who their relationship manager is? I don't know, it's come up a few times and I've had a few messages about it.
The first thing to do would be to contact customer services and ask to be put in touch with a relationship manager, because you know, sometimes it's hard to find emails and things, and they'll be able to filter it down to your office and then somebody will pick it up from there.
Brilliant. The word customer services, of course, fills us with horror, but I totally understand. Great. Go to customer services and that will sort you out. Now, I think from the pinging of my inbox, I think pretty much every one-to-one has now been booked during this session. So we'll look at doing some more, perhaps with some other people, but also from other colleagues from the Arts Council. We'll announce those on Friday in the newsletter, what we've managed to pull together. So do sign up if you're not signed up to the newsletter. I think we've got a link for that, Lara, if that's possible. Sign up to that, and then that will also give you the link to 4 o'clock where we can pick up any more questions. Obviously, I was moaning at the beginning, there's some people who don't run to time and we've run over. I do apologize for that, but there was so much content in there. We'll share what we've got. I think we've recorded this, haven't we? So we'll talk to the participants about whether they're happy or not for us to share that further or on a limited basis. But that's brilliant. Now we're back tomorrow morning to talk about developing your creative practice. A fund I'm very fond of, very different focus in many ways, really good that it came back so quickly. And then on Thursday, we'll be talking about trusted foundations, crowdfunding, and other random sources of cash. Great. Thank you all very much. I'll leave the window open. Do save the chat. There's lots of good stuff in there. So click the 3 little buttons above at the bottom of the chat window there, and we'll maybe see you tomorrow or see you on Friday or see you somewhere out there, hopefully live one day. And Oliver, you're about to do your one-to-ones. You're all fully booked, I know, so enjoy that. Thank you all very much. Adios, amigos. I'm going to assume everyone saved it who saved it, so I will close the thing. I've still got Lou, Bryony there. Thank you so very much. Nick, you're there. Thank you. Much appreciated. And we'll work out what's next. Hey, Bryony, welcome back to the world of work.
Thank you.
Get you on a trapeze again.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
All right, guys.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers.